Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Renovation and Outdoor Living Show this Tuesday, September the 15th. Good to see you all. And, it's another week of lockdown in Auckland here, rest of New Zealand enjoying freedom wherever you are around the world. I hope you're keeping safe. It hasn't, though, stopped this latest lockdown in Auckland, and I imagine for a lot of us around the world, it hasn't stopped the level of activity in the renovation and landscaping sectors. Here, spring is springing. People are going hard in the run-up to summer to catch up on all those jobs, not to mention those who are doing those prepping their homes maybe for sale or trying to catch this hot streak in the market. A quick word about that. Here's a factoid. The average house price across New Zealand, the median average across New Zealand, increased by 16.4% in August, from last August to this August. That is from 580,000 up to 675,000. That is the national average in New Zealand. 16.4% lift. There's also been a 2.4% lift from July 2020 to August 2020. It shows which way the market's still going. Every region in the country saw an annual increase, by the way, in median house prices. That is all according to the latest data from the Real Estate Institute of New Zealand. So a good time to be able to invest in your property. Click it on. Get hold of a really good sales agent. I can't think. Maybe me, and I'll help you out. Now, a quick recap of Friday. We were talking about bathrooms on Friday. First, we were talking about tapware. We spoke to Mark Little of Robertson Bathware, who introduced us to this amazing range of colours and also of shapes that are on trend at the moment. We've gone a long way from sort of round chrome, or that sort of silvery-looking chrome. He also talked to us a lot about the difference between your cheaper and your better quality tapware when it comes to how long they last and how you should keep them clean and to make them last a wee bit longer. Then we spoke to Logan Casey. Logan's from the Tile Depot, and he was updating us on their huge range and also particularly how he works with clients when it comes to pulling together a design. It's no longer a case of going into the shop, seeing some tiles you like, and walking home hoping they work out. Logan works with you and makes sure that you get it exactly how you want, depending on your personality and the sort of space which you're wanting to use the tiles in. So today, a reminder, first of all, the ongoing competitions to win insulation materials and home office materials, plus details of a new giveaway from Workspace IQ. We gave you a clue about it last week. We'll explain it all later on in the show today. Do feel free to make comments. It'd be really good to hear from you, particularly as our two guests today. If you've got anything you want to know about the outdoors, in particular, well, we've got Thelma, who's a designer and expert. She knows all things outdoors. And then we've got later on, we've got Damon, who's going to be talking about decking. But first, we want to talk xeriscaping. If you haven't heard of it, neither had I till today. I do know someone who does know about xeriscaping, and that is Thelma, as I just mentioned, Thelma Mayer, who owns and runs the Zones Landscape franchise in Auckland Central. As I mentioned, also an outdoor living stylist. She's been on the show before. We know her well. The obvious question, Thelma. Hello, nice to see you. Tell me,
Hi.
Xeriscape landscaping, where has this come from? What is it?
Yes, obviously the word zero means dry, and it's cultivated in areas of drought and where water irrigation was very limited. So it's really actually a very old age concept that is now becoming really popular with our busy lifestyles, the drought, and the water restrictions that we're now currently facing.
Yeah, which we do in Auckland. I imagine some other parts of the country probably not so much, but certainly, and if you're watching from parts of Australia or the US, be the same situation. So therefore, xeriscaping. But it's not just a concept. Is it something you actually have to try and choose to do with your garden, is it, or with your outdoor area?
Oh, it's very important how we choose the xeriscape landscaping. Obviously, the planning and the design is the most important. But the outcome is we can actually, in the olden days, if you think of drought-tolerant plants, you think of succulents and you think of this rock garden that looks so dated. But nowadays, it's really nice to use it with different type of materials like cotton steel. It's beautiful with rock and huge big varieties of plants, and how we can introduce cotton steel with it, and fireplaces, water features, and so forth. This is currently we're busy with the planning of this concept design, which is on a slope site, but we can think of any site and we're creating level areas where they can actually walk to and enjoy the spaces. So at the very bottom, we've got a seating area, and then we use sleeper steps going down, and the other area we use cotton steel with pebbles areas to create steps to a different level where they will just have a beautiful to look at a sculpture, walks to the boardwalk, and a swampy area eventually where there will be a seating area, and we can actually in that area plant daffodils and things like that. So planting, the very important thing of the planting arrangement is first to make sure that you space them correctly, so that they can grow into their use their natural way and mature to their size, because there's no trimming and no pruning and all those things that we do in a normal garden. There's nothing of that. Second of all, we need to use materials and plants that work well for that area, so making sure what plants work in that area that will grow naturally. In that specific concept design we're busy with is coastal, so we work with coastal natives, and introducing that we have the perfect concept design and planting arrangement.
So there's quite a lot you need to consider then. Looking at that design you just talked us through, there's quite a lot you have to actually consider when you're actually planning this. I mean, you just mentioned some of the plants. You have to, I mean, planning is everything, like I suppose every project, but particularly in this situation.
Yes. Planning is the most important. You try and group your plants together that needs the same amount of water. So say for instance you can arrange in a very dry area succulents, but I love to use natural native grasses with it to soften that, but group them together so you know exactly how much water is necessary for that specific plant. So if you need irrigation, you literally just have areas of irrigation and not your whole garden. And if you need to irrigate, just use a small little drip system that you can actually have in the ground, and get the water to the roots. You don't need to actually have irrigation over the leaves of plants. So it's clever thinking of how we actually arrange our planting. So very dry, most of them doesn't need water eventually, but initially for the first 6 months of establishing your planting arrangements, they will need a little bit of water.
Yeah, but when you're putting water onto, or you're trying to get water to the roots, soil becomes an important consideration as well.
Yes, so obviously it's important to analyze your soil. So if you making sure, do you have clay or do you have a nice soil? We are looking at obviously soil with rock, and so there's enough drainage, because otherwise plants can die off. They don't want and they don't need a lot of water. So it's important to analyze the soil and give them the perfect drainage for that. And this is why rock is working so well. And obviously we were talking about the mulch probably a little later, but important to have that also.
So tell me about the mulch then. What you've mentioned it now. What should you be thinking as far as mulch goes?
Yeah, so mulch is obviously the icing on the cake. It's the bullet in the garden. When you water your plants or when it was raining, obviously you want to protect the water and you don't want to evaporate. So it keeps it moist, the enough water that it needs. So the mulch is important to have like almost a 6 centimeter thickness, and try and replace them twice a year. It's very important, the mulching of your garden, to protect your plants and their root system, because we don't use a lot of water for these plants.
How easy is it to maintain this sort of space compared to maybe a different type of garden, like a more regular garden? Does it take more or less maintenance?
In the beginning, obviously, you have to water your plants. It needs a little bit of TLC. You have to make sure the soil is in perfect condition. But later on, it's literally, you can just keep on going, and it is looking after itself. So less maintenance. There's obviously no pruning. Most cases, no irrigation involved if you did the planning 100% correct. And there's always, in most cases, no lawn, so there's no lawn mowing. I mean, this is just literally the perfect scenario of the latest type of landscaping. A lot of people do still love edible planting. So they will, and you think of our citrus and olive trees, that is a very good type of plant that we can use in xeriscape gardens. It obviously needs a little bit in the beginning of water, but then eventually it's such a hardy plant that it can survive in these conditions. Whereas if you have a veggie type of garden, which most people want, then you will have to introduce maybe a little of a drop system, that like a drip irrigation system just to water that roots. But it's very subtle. And in most countries, you're allowed to do that even with water restrictions, because it's just a little bit that you give to your plants. What else?
See, I want to go back to that slide of your back garden there, because the one with the round, with all the yellow, with the orange cushions in the round around the fireplace. So let's see if we can just dig out that slide, because for anyone who's never been to New Zealand, if you're watching, then we'll just see if Ravina can find it for us. So it's the big round, huge sitting area. I was actually thinking about, well, actually, that is even cooler.
Yeah, so this is what we are planning for that client at the first level, is a seating area. We're going to use stone, because stone and rock and the natives of New Zealand really gel so well together, and it's going to have a nice fire pit in the center. So that is the elements that I was talking about, how beautiful it plays together with the modern cotton steel and the materials that we use.
Now, you mentioned how obviously once it's mature, that's the one. There's your back garden there. If you've never been to New Zealand, that's a very typical New Zealand back garden. We have a lot of cactuses and sort of Aztec-looking Mexican buildings in our desert here. So I don't know where that is. That is a pretty incredible. Do you know where that is? That is incredible, isn't it? And is that little? Yeah, must be. That's the size of an average house, that fire pit area. Anyway, what I was going to ask you quickly before we lose you, Thelma, is you mentioned about the benefits of xeriscaping. Well, you mentioned how easy it is to maintain once it's matured. You've obviously also, it's about conservation of water, which is fantastic. What about the costs, though? Because it strikes me as you're getting a lot of garden for your buck here.
Yes, I think xeriscape in the beginning can be a little bit more costly, just because of the materials. If you are using huge, big boulder rocks that we need to grind into spaces, because we literally place them in specific areas, I mean, that can be quite costly in the beginning. But because there's literally no pruning, no irrigation, no lawn mowing, no garden maintenance, except for the extra mulch that you need to replace, and just take a couple of weeds out, because that will occur in your mulching. That is really almost a no maintenance garden, which every single person is asking for.
God, wouldn't that be great? But one which also delivers vegetables that you don't actually have to grow; they just appear. But fascinating. Thelma, thank you so much. I think we're going to see a lot more of this. I think we're going to see a lot more of this sort of really amazing water conscious design, because not just because of the water saving, but as you just mentioned, the low maintenance is just, it's a win-win nowadays in our busy lives. Thelma, thank you so much for joining us. That's Thelma Mayer there, who runs the Zones Landscaping in Auckland Central. Really appreciate your time. We'll look forward to next time. We'll see if we can find another bizarre term to throw at you to talk about. But no, good to see you.
Thank you.
Right now, one feature of a garden that will definitely be water efficient will be, and this actually falls in line with what we've just been talking about, and that is decking. And that's going to be our second topic for today. And again, we're going to go to a company we've met before on the show, and that is Outdoor. Damon Jackson. I don't think we've spoken to Damon before. Damon's been with Outdoor for 6 years, helping them to grow as a best-in-class solution for decking. Damon, I hear you're also an avid home handyman. So I'm presuming that you build your own decks.
Oh yeah. The decks are pretty straightforward. We've got that one covered.
Is it easy? I mean, on a flat piece, seriously, how easy is? Should people like me, who've got a relative sort of gauge of measurements and planning and a hammer and nails, should we try and do it ourselves?
Well, it's always probably better to leave it to the experts. They'll help you along. But certainly, if it's a pretty basic deck, I mean, they're pretty straightforward. If you can build a deck out of timber, you can certainly use our aluminium system as well. But I think decks are a great thing because there's not too much at risk. If you cock up the deck, the roof's not going to fall down, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point, isn't it? Well, let's say you're setting consider that you're going to get a deck done. What are the things you have to actually consider before you start?
Well, it's pretty important to understand the space that you're going to build in and what the heights are. The heights are probably one of the key thing that we come across pretty frequently. And if you're building quite low to ground, then that can be challenging for the structure underneath. So certainly the heights is where I'd start, and before you even consider the design and where you're extending the deck to.
Yeah, and now this brings into what we really wanted to talk about today, and that is level entries to interiors, because this must be one of the great challenges when you know, as you say, it's probably quite easy with your big old-fashioned villa or batch type thing where you're building it out, and then there are steps maybe going down to the lawn, but the level entries, that makes it a lot more complex.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think traditionally decks or any outdoor living was a step down from the main dwelling, and we're seeing that is changing a lot. In fact, we would very rarely do a step down deck these days. They'd all be level entry, and it is quite achievable. Sometimes there's a few tricks that we need to employ to get a level entry, but it's pretty achievable for any surfaces. So we can do a level deck if you're over grass, or if you're over a concrete pad, or if it's even over waterproof membrane. So we can get a level entry there. It's safer, it's aesthetic, and it extends the living area a lot better.
This is where your Outdoor system comes in, doesn't it? Because when we've spoken about this before on the show, it looks almost floating. Because just explain for anyone who the system very quickly, how it helps, because we have seen the system before, but I think it was back in the sort of first 2 or 3 shows or 4 or 5 shows we did.
Yeah, that's a good image for the system. So the black members there, that's called Quick Build, and basically that replaces your timber bearer and joist system, which you'd use traditionally to build a deck. The benefits of the aluminium is it's straight and it's true and it's low height. So the other side is you can put any surface on it. You can put hardwoods over that system. You can put tiles, you can put turf, and you can put composite decks. So it really makes the options quite flexible. The other thing is, when we were talking about heights before, you can build it quite low to ground. And if you have a situation where, say, you've got waterproofing over a second level, or you've got to step down to a concrete pad, you often don't have a lot of height, and your options are very limited, well, up until now. So this system allows you to get that flush level entry that you're probably after, but also it opens up the options for surfaces. So that's a great benefit of the Quick Build system.
Yeah, tell me about water control, because I know we've just been talking about how, you know, we're maybe designing gardens to be more water friendly, but the reality is certainly where we live in Auckland, a lot of water comes down, there's a lot of rain comes down in New Zealand. So this surely makes it very difficult to get this level entry to interiors, even with the system like yours, or how do you get around it?
Yeah, that's right. That's a good point, actually, because traditionally, if you would like tiles flush with your interior floor level, what that's going to mean is you'll need to direct fix the tiles probably onto concrete and have a drainage channel. Well, and that's because that's just a non-permeable surface and you can't have that water egressing inside. So what the quick build system allows is you've got a platform underneath which is actually permeable, and water can drain in between the tiles. And that means that you can butt those tiles right up to your the door of your home, and you don't need to worry about water coming inside.
That's really clever. And the tiles themselves, that's really clever. Who developed the? I mean, did you guys develop the tiles? Because now you're all about the system, aren't you?
Yeah. Well, we bring in our own range of tiles, which is particularly suited to the system. But of course, porcelain tiles have been around for a long time, and they're probably the most commonly used exterior tile.
Now,
this slide. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say, because when I was looking through the slides beforehand, what struck me here is what a beautifully clean finish this is, and yet it's an ordinary little house, yet it's just a really, really clever little deck.
Yeah, so this is quite a good case study, actually, because you've rightly so pointed out it's quite a humble little home. And what they had is, because, again, they had a timber deck that was quite low to ground, and they had all the challenges that come with that. The deck was actually rotting. And the solution for them was to use the quick build system to frame out that low height and then put tiles on top. And because the system is straight and true and can be built in low height, it was the perfect solution for that scenario. And actually, cost-wise, pretty similar to doing a standard deck, quite frankly.
Wow, that's interesting, isn't it? Because it looks like a lot of engineering in there. So to be able to do that so what do you reckon that would cost using a standard tile in an area like that?
Yeah, you put me on the spot because we don't install decks ourselves, so it's certainly up to the builder. But what you would expect is the cost of that would be about the same as what it would cost you to build a traditional deck with hardwood, say.
Yeah, and I think that's the point, isn't it? That if it's a comparable amount, yet that's solving problems which a hardwood deck may be creating. So that's quite an interesting one, isn't it? So the only other question I was going to say cost-wise is how much does it cost to get? I don't know. Let's think, Damon. You build decks, probably be about a 4-day job. How much would that cost? I'm not talking cash either. I'm just talking, it's friendship and anything else. Right. I will try and get my hands dirty. I think actually probably the first thing you said to us when you sort of read me was, Rawdon, just leave it to the professionals. So maybe I will.
Yeah, that's the one.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for giving us some time today to talk us through the Outdual system, but also more's the point, as you say, so many houses you see nowadays are going for that level entry decking.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, you see it on all the shows as well, the Block and all of those home improvement shows. It's just all level entry, is extending the outdoor living area, and we're pretty happy to be able to bridge the gap for people.
We're too lazy to walk down a step to get outside now. That's where we're at.
That's it.
Awesome. Good on you, Damon. That's really nice to have a chat to you. That's Damon Jackson there from Outdual, of course. And Damon, we'll catch up with you again sometime soon. So we'll see you soon, mate. We've got a couple of minutes to tell you about the giveaways. Now, the first thing is this is the perfect gift if you're looking at internal walls, if you're doing a bit of refit inside, you want to help with the sound transfer around the bedrooms and the bathroom. You remember when we spoke to Ortex, they were telling us about this green stuff sound solution. Fantastic insulation, not only for warmth, but also not only thermal, but also, as I just mentioned, sound transfer. It's acoustic insulation as well. So like our page, tell us when Ortex was founded, and you can win that. Look up Ortex online if you want, or watch a show from this time last week. The second giveaway, the Staygo USB-C hub. That's the black thing there, which everything plugs into, and it comes with all the leads as well. Sold at Noel Leeming. Plus, we'll also be giving away the Curve SE in white, same as the black thing which the Apple Mac they're sitting on. That's available online. You can actually buy the black stand if you want from JB Hi-Fi and Noel Leeming. We're giving away a white one. So in order to win those, I think you had to like the page and share the competition. Okay. Now, the one which we mentioned last week, but we never showed you. This was, I don't know if you were watching a week ago. It was last Tuesday. Randa Abbasi, who runs Workspace IQ, was talking. So her job is to go into workplaces and make sure that you don't get unwell, sick, or hurt, basically, because of your environment. And that includes the eyes and the strain on computer screens, not just RSI and how you sit and how you type, but even things like your eyes. Therefore, lighting is really important. So she gave us 5 of these desk lamps to give away. And to win one of those, you have to enter the competition. You need to like our page and let us know your best work from home hack. Okay? Your best work from home hack, advice, suggestion, whatever you can find for us. And we will send out one of those 5 desk lamps to you if your name gets pulled out of the hat in the draw. So to finish off this Tuesday, the top 10. This week, we've got the top 10 picks of the Comedy Wildlife Photography Awards 2020. Now, these are our picks, because there are an awful lot of these, and so we just decided on our top 10, okay? So these aren't the official top 10, but they're awesome anyway. Number 10, Smiley. The clue is in the name, Smiley. Now, this was taken by Arthur Thielman. Now, this is apparently, this fish is called Sparosoma cretense. This comes from the Canary Islands, and that is not doctored. It's not graphically enhanced. That is the very image he got when he went down, when Arthur went down and took a photo of the Sparosoma cretense. Of course, you knew that's what it was called. Number 9. This is called Crashing into the Picture. This is Brigitte took this. Brigitte Alcalay Marcon. This is taken in Etosha National Park in Gambia. That's what you call a photo bomb if ever you saw one. And number 8. This is Eric Fisher's brown bear in Alaska. Hi, all. Hey, how you doing? Looks so friendly. Go up and give it a hug. See what happens. Number 7, we've got, this is Danielle Dermo, took this in Florida, and this is the tern tuning its wings. It actually looks like it's playing its, that's really clever. It looks like it's, like it's got a violin bow in its hand. Number 6, Thomas Vijayan took this. I think that's his name. This is in Kabini in India, and it is fun for all the ages. There you go, mum and dad lending their tails to the youngsters to swing. Do you remember those hours you used to spend walking down the road with your tiny ones, swinging them between the arms, and they just never, ever wanted to stop? Number 5, a kingfisher. Here in, this is Kirkcudbright in Scotland, taken by Sally Lloyd-Jones. It's a mocking, very nice. It's not a kingfisher, it's a mockingbird. Number 4, Ayala Fishema took this. It's a fox and a rodent from Israel. We're going to call that one Tough Negotiations. Very, very cool photo. At number 3, this one is titled Boredom. Guess why? Marcus Westberg took this of this mountain gorilla. That was in Megahenga Gorilla National Park. I think that's how you pronounce it in Uganda. Meganga National Park. At number 2, Peter Stockman took this in Kaudulla National Park in Sri Lanka. Social distance, please. Talk to the hand. Well done. And number 1, our favorite funny Comedy Wildlife Photography Award for 2020 is this amazing, awesome turtle. This is Terry the Turtle flipping the bird. Mark Fitzpatrick took this on Lady Elliot Island, Queensland in Australia. There you go, Terry the Turtle. You're our winner for today. Absolutely fantastic photo. Good to see you all. Please get in and enter those competitions. We'll draw 2 of them next week, and the 3rd one a little bit later. Okay, so 2 of them will draw the insulation and the USB hub and computer stand next week. Hopefully see you then. Good to see you. Bye-bye.